الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Continue inshallah ta'ala with the fiqh from رسالة في الفقه الميسر, and we are in the fiqh المعاملات or the transactions, and we finished briefly the subject of al-bay' or buying and selling with some of the conditions mentioned and what's forbidden, and conditions whether it's to validate a contract of buying and selling or the conditions or stipulations in the contract, and then the different types of forbidden types of buying and selling. And we talked about al-khiyar, or the conditions, which is part of the conditions in the contract, but the choice for a person to have to void the contract. The many different also things that the ulama mentioned based on the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Then after that, the next subject is al-riba. As we said, we're going through this in a brief way to at least get to know the foundations, the principles of the matters of fiqh. And in any knowledge that we learn, if we do not learn the foundations of it, a person will be always confused and lost. So that's why the foundation is very important, because you can always relate things to these foundations, to these principles. And even though we're saying things in English, but lughatul fiqh, of course, the language of al-fiqh is the Arabic language, but we get to understand something till we, inshallah ta'ala, go to that level, inshallah. We're going through what's mentioned here in the book. First of all, what is the ta'rif, what is the definition of al-riba? Al-riba, or usury, and if you guys have the English version, you can help me out with some of the things that are mentioned there. And the definition of it and the understanding of it. As far as the principles, the foundation, inshallah, it's easy, and we should be able to understand that. Put aside, if you can, all the different practicality that we're facing, so that we don't get it confused with the subject. So buying houses, buying cars, we'll deal with that later, inshallah. We want to make sure that we just go to the principles of it and understand it, inshallah. So what is the definition of al-riba? As always, there is the linguistic definition, and there is the religious, or al-ma'na al-istilahi, or istilah al-fuqaha, where the people of fiqh, they would give the definition of it based on the matters of fiqh, of course. So al-riba, linguistically, it says maqsoor. It's ism maqsoor. That means it has an alif, al-riba, but this alif can be ya, can be waw. It depends, like yarbu عند الناس yarbu. So this is what the meaning of al-maqsoor. It has an alif like this. ويطلق على الزيادة والنمو. Linguistically, the word al-riba refers to increase and something that is growing. When something grows, when something is increasing, this is what is called riba. ويقال ربى المال إذا زاد ونمى. You can say ربى المال. The wealth increased. ربى. That means what it increased. أو أربى على الخمسين يعني زاد. When you say أربى, which is from the same root, أربى على الخمسين, increased more than 50. That means it's more than 50. أربى على الخمسين. ويطلق على كل بيع محرم. Also, which is important to note, that the word al-riba is given to any forbidden transaction. So you're not saying something wrong if a forbidden type of transaction, you would call it riba, even though it does not fall into the specific meanings of a riba in the fiqh, from the fiqh perspective. Because some of the ulama, when they defined a riba, they included any forbidden transaction, any type of bay' that is forbidden, they included under the category or under the meaning of a riba. This is linguistically. الربا في اصطلاح الفقهاء, the ulama, they have different definitions, and they all basically would give us the same result. And some would try to make it as easy as we can remember, and that's why the first one is easy, which is الزيادة في أشياء مخصوص. Since we said الربا means increase, so it's the increase in specific matters. And that's what we're going to study, inshallah ta'ala. So not any increase. And to make the definition precise and short, so you leave the word, or you give the word makhsus, something specific. How do we know these specific matters? From the deen, from the shar. So it's not any increase or any ziyada. It's ziyada or increase in very specific matters, as it will be mentioned, inshallah. Or then he mentioned another definition, which is many of the fuqaha are upon this definition of a riba because it gives more details. We'll try to go briefly through the words of it. He says, هو عقد عقد على عوض. عقد means it's a contract. That means two sides. There are two sides to it. As the bay', as we talked about al-bay', buying or selling, it has two sides, a buyer and a seller. So a riba involves two people. There's no such a thing as a person doing riba to himself. It has to be two separate people, whether it's physical or non-physical entities, whatever. So it's عقد, it's a contract, it's a transaction. على عوض مخصوص. And if you have questions, inshallah, at the end, especially with things that are contemporary or things of that nature. عقد على عوض مخصوص. So it's a عقد on عوض. عوض is, as we talked about the word عوض before, when you get something in return, not a gift, some benefit, some monetary benefit that you would get. That's the عوض. Something in return of something, you get a benefit from it. So على عوض مخصوص, very specific عوض, very specific return, as will be explained with the types of riba. غير معلوم التماثل, not known التماثل of it or the similarity of it. How they say it in the English version?
But not for its known equivalent according to
No.
criteria.
Not known equivalent from the perspective of the Sharia. في معيار الشرع. There's something called التماثل, or what's equivalent, because the riba is in specific categories of things. So what's equivalent to something else, as it also will be explained, inshallah, it's not what people would make equivalent. It's what the Shara, what the deen made them equivalent. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made certain things equivalent to one another. For example, as it will come, gold and silver, they are equivalent. They're not the same, right? But they share something together in one category together, versus the things that are eaten, as it's going to be mentioned in the hadith. So في معيار الشرع, according to the deen, حالة العقد, when the person is doing the transaction, أو مع تأخير في البدلين أو أحدهما, or البدل or the exchange is deferred. So there are two things mentioned here in the definition that will be, which is basically the two types of riba, and a third one is included in one of them, or in a third category, which is either the riba when it comes to at-tafadul, something is given with ziyada, with increase, but they are not equivalent, or they are equivalent to one another from certain types, very specific types. You cannot exchange them and you get more or less. And the other thing is an-nasi'a, or something deferred. Something deferred, that means a person, specific types of wealth that you would exchange and you won't pay right away. That means you'll have it, the payment is deferred. This is also riba in very specific matters, not in everything. So if you don't understand fully the definition, it's meant to be this way because it's going to be explained. When something specific, what is the specific? This is what it comes afterwards, inshallah. But before he talks about the different types of riba, he mentioned, as always, the hikmah, or the wisdom behind tahrim al-riba, or why riba is forbidden. But before we talk about the hikmah, I would like to go to the next point first, which is anwa' al-riba, and then we can go back to the hikmah, or to the wisdom. He says here that al-riba عند أكثر العلماء نوعان. According to many of the people of knowledge, it's two types of riba. And the issue of categorizing things, it doesn't mean that that's why they say most of them, because ulama can make more categories of things, and it's not basically introducing something new. It's whether you include something in one of the categories or you don't include it, you make it a separate part of it, but different part, that's fine, as long as it's all the matters are included. So the very famous two types of riba, that's what we need to remember them in the Arabic language. He says riba an-nasi'a, and we'll talk about this. And the second one is riba al-fadl. Riba al-fadl. Again, I'm saying this again, we're not here discussing the riba yet in the practical world that we live in. So that means you might not get from this specific rulings of specific dealings that people are facing. We're going through the basics of it, going to the roots of it, and how all of these things comes from. So riba al-nasi'a and riba al-fadl. Riba al-nasi'a and riba al-fadl. What is riba al-nasi'a? Al-nasi'a, the meaning of al-nasi'a is at-ta'jil wa at-ta'khir. When something is delayed, when something is to be given in a later time. This is al-nasi'a. Comes from al-nasa, not al-nisa. Al-nisa with a kasra, women. But al-nasa with a fatha, that's something that is deferred, something later. So what is riba al-nasi'a? The riba of al-nasi'a, that means the riba of delaying some form of transaction. What is it? الزيادة في أحد العوضين مقابل تأخير الدفع ويسمى بالأجل. You have زيادة, you have an increase. Since we said the definition of riba, it always includes something increased. So something increased in what they call it at أموال ربوية, in what specifically the riba applies in, because it does not apply in everything, but in return of something that's going to be paid later. So you exchange two things, but the payment of it is to be given later. So this is where riba nasi'a, and it will be explained also. Everything will be explained, but be patient, inshallah. So this is riba nasi'a, and once we see the hadith and the illah, inshallah, things will be easy. Riba al-fadl is the increase, which is the opposite of a naqs, or something that is deficient. So riba al-fadl is, again, you have two things that are being exchanged, like anything of buying and selling, but you would have one is to be given more than the other. Some of it is permissible and some of it is haram, and that's what the riba in specific categories, it's haram to ask for more. So how to make this is clear? I'll mention the hadith, inshallah, and then we can go back to these definitions to make it clear, inshallah. The hadith that brings all of this together is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, Sahih Muslim and others, that he said, الذهب بالذهب والفضة بالفضة والبر بالبر والتمر بالتمر والشعير بالشعير والملح بالملح مثلا بمثل سواء بسواء يدا بيد. إذا اختلفت الأصناف فبيعوا كيفما شئتم ما دام يدا بيد. This is what the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. They call it al-amwar al-riboya. These are the things where the riba occurs in, only in these categories, according to the categories of these things. What is it? The hadith says al-dhahab, gold, and that's why he said gold with gold, and we'll understand what that means, inshallah. Gold, write these types down, inshallah. You have gold, you have silver. Al-burr is what? What's al-burr? Wheat. Wheat. Al-burr is wheat. Al-tamr is dates. Al-sha'ir is barley. And al-milh is salt. Okay? So these are 6 things. Is it only these specific naw' or specific types here, or it refers to something bigger? It refers to something bigger. And that's why the first two, al-dhahab wal-fidda, the gold and silver, whether it's gold and silver, of course, if it's any of these specifics, the riba occurs in these types of things. And we'll talk about how does it occur. But al-dhahab wal-fidda is one category, and the other 4 is another category. And anything that falls under these 2 categories will be considered from the riba types, that certain things are forbidden to deal with it. Before we get into the categories, what is the meaning of al-dhahab bil-dhahab? Meaning that if a person wants to exchange gold with gold, this is the badal, this is the exchange. Someone has gold and wants to exchange it with another gold. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, it has to be mithlan bi-mithl, has to be exactly the same amount of gold that they're exchanging. سواء بسواء, exactly the same. يدا بيد, hand to hand, not being deferred. What does that mean? You have gold of a lesser quality than another gold, right? You want to exchange them, even if it's a necklace versus a bracelet, something like this. One weighs 20, one weighs 30. What the meaning of this is that you cannot exchange them unless there are 20, exactly the same. Everything is from both sides are the same, nothing different. So 20 grams versus 20 grams, right? And it has to be yadan biyad, that means hand to hand like this, without deferring, without take this and bring me the other piece later. No. So this is not permissible. And of course, if a person do this, people would lose that way. So, but then at the end of the hadith, the Prophet, in another hadith also, the Prophet ﷺ, when it comes to the tamr, he gave the clear solution to this, that if you want to exchange gold with gold, you sell what you have, and you take darahim, you take money from it, or something else, and then with that money, you purchase the new gold. You cannot exchange gold with gold if you want to increase or have increase in the exchange. Increase meaning in the weight of it, in the price of it. It has to be exactly the same, which of course doesn't work that way because one is of better value and things like this. This is with the gold, this is with the silver, this is with these types of food. For example, when the Prophet ﷺ, tamr came from Khaybar, and the Prophet ﷺ, when someone brought it and he tasted it, said he liked it ﷺ. He says, this is not like the tamr that we have. So he was told ﷺ that it got exchanged with a lesser quality of a date, that is less amount versus more amount versus of the other kind, which is good but lesser amount. For example, 2 pounds of a cheap date or less quality date versus 1 pound of a good quality date. Right. So, for example, you have in the market one type of date is 1 pound is $10, and another type of date 1 pound is for $1. Right. You have the one that is worth $1, and can you exchange it with the $10 and you pay the difference? It's not permissible. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said this is riba. So the tamr, which is one of these 6 categories, you cannot exchange tamr with tamr unless it's 1 pound versus 1 pound. If it's 1 pound and 1 pound, sure. But who wants to do this with different qualities? You would lose that way. So what's the solution? Sell what you have, take money, and then purchase the other what you like without doing that exchange. So it's forbidding any exchange with increase, any exchange with increase in these 6 types that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned. And if it's one from one to the other, it has to be also hand to hand. You cannot defer it for later time. This is when it comes to the specific hadith. Then if you go to what is the difference between gold and silver versus the food, we should have some slides where we can make it easier, but hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, you're following me, inshallah. Now we have these 6 types, right? 2 of them is one type, and the other 4 is another type or another category. So, and this is where they call al-jins one now. So, al-dhahab wal-fidda, why the dhahab? What's equivalent or what's common between the gold and silver? Again, if it's gold, it's obvious. If it's silver, it's obvious. But is there anything can be included that is similar to this? The majority of the ulama, they talk about the thamaniyya. What brought them together is the fact that they are used for money, for monetary exchange. So gold and silver and anything that comes into this category of a thamaniyya. So that means money comes into the same category. So people where they use things to pay the prices of things as it used to be with the gold and silver. So also with the money that comes into the same category. So this is the illah, or the reason why it's forbidden when it comes to riba. Anything that is used for as money or things like that, then the riba is included in this. That means you cannot exchange them. For example, you cannot exchange dollar with dollar unless it's exactly the same. 100 with 100. You cannot say 100 with 110. And of course, you see how the deferred one, which is the loan, which they made it a third category, which is riba al-jahiliyyah, the riba of jahiliyyah. Someone wants to take a loan, so he gives $100, for example, and he says, I'll give it back to you after a month. If more, then he would say, well, I will increase it. So if it's after a month, then it's going to be 110. So deferred and it's increased. So there's increase and there's a deferred, which is haram. Why? Because it's dollars. And because of the monetary means here. But we'll talk about the nasi'a also in any other matters as the same thing. So the other things, which is the food, without going into the details of what's the illah, what's the reason here, it's basically that it's mat'um, it's food, and it's either weight or weight with like a weight unit or with volume. Whether it's to be measured with weight or volume, and it's something that people eat. So anything that people eat and it's measured with volume or with weight, that also falls into the same category of the money that it's considered to be riba. So anything that is money and anything that is eaten and its weight or measured by volume. Some said something to be saved. So if you understand this, then what is the riba here before we continue? Are you ready, inshallah? This also requires to pay attention to what's going to be mentioned here, inshallah. So we have two categories. Dhahab al-fidda, which is the money-wise, and the rest, which is the food that people would eat, and it's measured with weight or volume. Correct? If the illah is different, first, if the illah is the same, if they're from the same categories, right? You can either, if it's from the same category, so it means dhahab or fidda. If it's dhahab to dhahab, as we said, two things are forbidden: the increase and the nasi'a, to have it in a later time. Okay? Fidda with fidda, the same thing. Silver with silver. This is also forbidden. But if it's in the same illah, but they are different, which is basically gold versus silver, or gold with money. You're buying gold. Money has the same reason or the same wisdom behind the gold and the silver and money. So you have dollars and you're going to purchase gold. Does it have to be equal? No, it can be different. So you can have increase. So the gold is 10 grams. Do you have to give it in $10, for example? No. So 10 grams, so it's for $600. That's fine, right? So the amount is not the same because they're different, even though they are both in the same category of money. So they are different, so the increase can be there, but it's not permissible to defer it. Okay? You get it? So the things that has the same illah, they have the same reason why it's riba, which is a-thamaniyya, which is it's used for paying prices of things. So this is basically, again, gold and silver and money, whatever the money that is. If it's from the same nur, if it's from the same kind, then the increase is forbidden, and to delay it is forbidden. I want you to put this down first, inshallah. So if it's from the same type, gold and gold, gold with gold, two things are forbidden. The increase, so you cannot exchange 10 with 20. It has to be 10 with 10. The increase is haram, and to delay the transaction is also haram. It has to be hand to hand. Both have to be there. Yes, yes. Riba al-fadl and riba al-nasi'a both applies if it's dhahab with dhahab, gold with gold, silver with silver, the same money with the same money, right? But if they are still from the same category of money-wise, and gold and silver, but they're different. Gold with silver. You have silver and you want to exchange it with gold. Or money, you want to purchase gold. Or purchase whatever, right? So it's different. Then in this case, what's forbidden? Riba al-nasi'a. Al-nasi'a, which is delaying the transaction, this is forbidden. But al-fadl is okay. Increasing is okay. So gold and silver. You have some silver and you want to purchase gold with silver. That's fine. You can go purchase gold with silver. And you don't have to be the same. You're not going to purchase 10 grams of gold with 10 grams of silver. So it's okay to increase. This is the meaning of al-fadl, that you're purchasing 10 grams of gold with, I'm not sure what's the exact exchange rate, but say, for example, 30 grams of silver, right? So that what happened here, there's an increase. This is fadl. This is okay. Why is it okay? Because there are different types from the same category, right? So you can increase. But can you give the silver to the one that you're purchasing gold from? You give him the silver and he says, come back tomorrow, I'll give you your gold. That's not permissible. Even if you agree upon everything, it has to be hand to hand. Has to be hand to hand. The same thing when you're purchasing gold, hand to hand. That's why those who purchase gold over the net, it's not permissible. It has to be hand to hand. And also with credit cards and things like this, it's not permissible. It has to be hand to hand, and the money, meaning the money is paid immediately. The same thing comes under this, and again, we'll delay the questions later, inshallah. When it comes to money exchange, you have dollars that you want to purchase riyal with it, right? This is from the same category, but they're different types, right? Riyal versus dollars. So what is forbidden here? An-nasi'ah. Can you have different amounts? Of course. So if it's forbidden fadl, that means $10 has to be 10 riyals. Of course, it doesn't work this way. So whatever the exchange rate, that's fine. A dollar is by 3.75. So this is what happened here, fadl. Something is more than the other. That's fine. But you cannot exchange it except that has to be hand to hand. And hand to hand, there is some things can be slightly different. This is the practicality of it. We're not talking about what considered to be hand to hand. This can be changed according to times, right? But it has to be immediate. Has to be immediate without deferring the transaction at any time whatsoever. So again, if you, it happens all the time. People, for example, they want to exchange dollars. So over the phone, I have some dollars. Can you, a person, for example, traveling, is in Saudi Arabia, wants riyals. So you call on the phone, I have $10. Can you exchange it for me? He says, yes, what's the exchange rate? It's such and such. Okay, the deal is done. There's no deal. Right? Or I'll send someone to give you the dollars and you can bring it to me later. It doesn't, this is all riba. It has to be hand to hand. But a way out of this, and I'm going to the practicalities here, but a person can act on your behalf. So can you please exchange this money for me? That's fine. But that person that is going to exchange it, he has to do it hand to hand like this. And what comes under the meaning of hand to hand, that means it cannot be delayed. And the wisdom of that, we'll deal with this later, inshallah. So this is if it's in the same category. If we apply the same thing for the food and what's measured with weight and volume, so tamr or any of these types, say for example, tamr or rice or whatever, right? Two different types of rice. Basmati rice, there is this rice, that rice. So, can you take 5 pounds of basmati rice, which is more expensive, and go exchange it with another type of rice cheaper, and they give you the difference? Rice and rice. So what's forbidden in rice with rice? Riba al-fadl and nasi'ah. So you cannot increase the amount and you cannot defer the transaction, right? So if you want to exchange, then 10 pounds and 10 pounds. Nobody wants to do that. So what do you do then? You sell what you have, and then the money that you get, you purchase the whatever kind you want. If it's rice to rice. But what if it's rice with dates? What's forbidden? There's still something forbidden. An-nasi'ah, which is deferring or delaying the payment. This is forbidden. But yeah, they can be rice 10 pounds versus 1 pound of dates. So there's fadl, there's increase. This is fine, but not nasi'ah. Why? Because they're in the same category. Are you ready for the next step? What if it's from this category and the other category? So gold and silver or money that you want to purchase with gold and silver or money, tamr, dates. Nothing is forbidden. Nothing is forbidden. You get it? So I want to purchase dates. I'm going to purchase date with gold or silver or money. So I go to the store, or I don't go to the store, it doesn't matter. I purchase it over the net, that's fine. Yeah, because there are two different categories now. We're talking about gold and silver versus food, right? So, for example, you go purchase, of course, you can, the increase is obvious, right? So you're going to pay $10 versus that you're going to get 20 pounds. So there's a difference in the fadl. Can you defer it? Yes, you can defer it. You can make payments. You can say, I'm going to buy, 10, a container of dates, right? But I'm going to pay you the money over 6 months. That's fine. As long as there's no riba involved, meaning riba of the loan type of thing, late fees and all of that, which is either in this category or a third category. And going on the side a little bit like this is some of the deviant ones, and I say deviant ones, they wanted to play tricks on the people. They say that this is, since these are the two categories of riba, the issue of the loans is not included in this. This is even worse. The issue of loans, this is what the category of riba al-jahiliyyah. This is the riba of the jahiliyyah, where the Prophet ﷺ said, riba al-Abbas, his uncle is under my foot, where was basically the loans. كل قرض جر نفع فهو ربا. Whether you put it in the categories here or you don't, it doesn't matter. It's the worst type whatsoever. So if we understand with the hadith the different categories of things and how, if it's the same kind, no, not kind, because we have in Arabic al-jins and al-nawa, and something called al-illa. Al-jins is the kind, al-nawa is the type, if it's correct to say. So, for example, they have rice, and there's types of rice. Al-jins is the kind is rice, but then you have this type and that type and this type, right? And you have gold, different types and things like this. And the illa meaning the reason why it's forbidden. So we said thamaniya, money-wise, versus what's to be eaten and it's weighed or measured with volume. Do we need to repeat it again? If it's from the same wisdom or the same illa or the same reason why it's forbidden, that means a thamaniya, that it's money, right? If it's from the same kind, both ribas are forbidden. Al-fadl wa nasi'a, the increase and the delay. But if they're of two different kinds from the same illa, or from the same reason why it's forbidden, that means a thamaniya, money versus silver, money versus gold. So that means only the riba of an-nasi'a is forbidden. Delaying the payment is forbidden, but al-fadl is okay. So you can say that every fadl, riba, nasi'a is always forbidden, but not the opposite. Right? Is it clear? So not everything that is forbidden because it's the fadl is forbidden, you would find the nasi'a also is forbidden. So when you exchange gold with gold, you cannot give more, but you can, and also you cannot defer it or delay it. Gold with silver, gold with money, you can do more, right? You can do more. So you can do fadl, but the nasi'a is forbidden. And with two different categories with each other, two different illas, two different reason, then you can do whatever you want. Is it clear? You forget it if you don't write it down. So you can put gold and silver together and money, and then put, as the hadith mentioned, al-burr and al-tamr and al-sha'ir and al-milh, and put underneath it that this is al-mat'um, or what's to be eaten and weighed or measured with volume. Anything, because it comes under as a result of this, anything that people weigh or they use for measure, as long as it's something that they eat. The same thing applies to it. Other than that, then you can exchange car with another car, machine with another machine, no problem. It's only these categories of things. And of course, the wisdom behind it is very obvious, should be very obvious, that these are the necessities of the livelihood matters of human beings. So they are not to be tampered with. They are not to be used for the evil ones or the corrupted ones. And this is what happens when it comes to riba. It has to be safe, that it has to be tangible like this, to keep the life of people in a good way. So that's what, going back now to what riba النسيئة. النسيئة is التأجيل والتأخير, to delay. And النسيئة is to increase in any of the exchange while delaying the payment. And al-fadl is the increase. Just the fact that it's increased. As he says, كذهب بذهب, like gold with gold, or barley with barley, and things like this. And this is riba al-fadl, and sometimes they call it riba al-bay', and sometimes it's also a riba al-khafi, sometimes it's hidden from people. He says, وزاد الشافعية, the Shafi'is, they increased the third category, they call it the riba al-yad, the riba of the hand, which is to delay taking one of the exchanges, which is the same thing as mentioned before, but they make it more specific. وزاد بعضهم, and others, they increased a fourth category, which is riba al-qard, the riba of loans. Whether you include it from the two types mentioned before from a nasi'a, or you want to make it a different category, that's fine, which is a loan that brings benefit. It's also haram. And he says that's why غير أن هذا التقسيم لم يخرج في الحقيقة عن تقسيم بقية العلماء إذ إنما سموه ربا اليد أو ربا القرض يمكن إرجاعهما إلى نوعين الأولين. So it's basically nothing new here. So whether you have something called riba al-yad, the riba of the hand, or the riba of the loan, it's in the same two categories that we mentioned before, riba al-fadl and the riba of the nasiya, the riba of the increase and the riba of the delay of the payments. Before we end this part, he says, which is some contemporary matter, the iqtisadiyun, the economic, the people in the economics, what's the name of the person that is specially in economy? Specialty is in economy. The economists, they they categorize الربا to استهلاكي وإنتاجي. What they call it in English translation? The economists. الاستهلاكي والإنتاجي. It's the one that is استهلاكي is for the things that people use for food and what is it called? Consumption and production. Consumption and production. So the consumption is when people would take an increase for the things or the loans that are used to purchase food and medicine and things like this. And the production is what it's taken for the things that people use for production, manufacturing and things of that nature. So, and some of them, they would say مضاعف and basit, the multiplies of riba versus the simple one, meaning when the faida or the interest or the riba is multiplied and there's no fixed even interest rate, it's floating, versus something that is fixed, it doesn't matter, it's all riba. Because this is one of the ways also they deceive others, especially back home. They say if the bank gives you a fixed rate, that's not riba. Right? I'm sorry. If they give you a floating rate, that's not riba, because it depends on how things are. But if it's fixed, that's riba. Who said that? This is all riba if there's an increase with these types of things that are mentioned. So he says, وَتَحْرِيمُ الْإِسْلَامِ لِلرِّبَى. Islam forbidden the riba. It's all types of transaction with it, whether it's riba fadl or riba nasi'a. وسواء كان الربا بفائدة كثيرة أو قليلة, whether it's with lots of percentage of riba or small, whether it's for consumption, whether it's for investment, whether it's for productions, all of that is haram. So it's just these categories that are mentioned afterwards, it just people, they use it, whatever they intentionally try to deceive people or not, it doesn't matter, but it's all haram. Because again, people think that the riba is, they picture this evil man that is so greedy that he sits and he has lots of money and he gives loans to people. That's because they need it. They need it for food and drink and then necessity, and they come crying, please. And he would give them loan with an increase. The Arabs, even when the verses were revealed, they did not even know this type of greed. They were extremely generous people. They would never let someone be hungry and they don't go feed them. This is well known, even though they would worship idols and everything. But this is something that was a quality in them, that the riba they would deal with riba was not like this whatsoever. The riba that they were dealing with is the production one, is for investment, is the journey of the winter and the summertime, is for trade, for the rich people. That's why the Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet ﷺ, he would do it for the trade. So this issue of people are in need and so on, this was not even existing at that time. So who made some of the people, they only make the riba only for those who are needy, and that's what's haram. it's for everything. So I'll stop here, inshallah. But again, maybe I hope, inshallah, it's clear, even though sometimes I make it difficult with the way I explain it. But if it's not clear, please ask me so that we can make clear what's mentioned. We talked only about anwa' al-riba and the definition of it, and then we can leave it there, but you have to have it written. You have to make sure that you understand because you forget it, inshallah. So, yeah, we need a board for this. Or at least I should have used the projector. No, I should have used the projector. But take it this time, this way, inshallah, and then next time, inshallah, we can review it and add, inshallah. But it's good sometimes when it comes to ilm specifically that you don't get it the easy way first. And that's why these types of ease in the beginning, it's not necessarily a good thing. And that's why the mutun, even the books of fiqh, when it's very precise, it's very difficult sometimes. Why it's meant to be that way, so that the people put effort and try to know what every word is, because once you put that effort, it will stay with you forever. And also, if you read a book of specialty in something that you're not in that specialty, yes, it will be difficult for you. So that's why you have to learn the terminologies of every ilm that we study. But inshallah, if you didn't understand it, that's fine, as long as you wrote it down. Till next time, we'll explain it more, inshallah, with maybe bringing some visuals, inshallah. Here, there's a question. There's attendance code first. Attendance code is Nasi'a Fadl 2. Now, even the code is difficult, mashallah. So, Nasi'a Nasseeah. Fadl Fadhl, then the number 2. Nasi'a, and H, and then Fadl 2. Nasi'a, 8, Fadl 2. Everybody's there? It's Nasseeahfadl, the number 2. There's a question here. Gold can be different purity, which makes it different price. For example, 10 grams of gold, 12 karat, and 10 grams of gold, 24 karat. Yes, it has to be. This is not permissible. So it has to be sold first, because it has to be exactly the same, weight-wise, quality-wise, carat-wise, everything. So that's why it has to be sold, and then purchase it with money, and then purchase the new one. So it says it has to be the same amount. That's why you cannot do it that way. If you want to do it that way, gold with gold, it has to be the same amount. 10 grams with 10 grams. And nobody again would do that. No one would want to do this because it's different. So what do? Sell what you have and then purchase the other one that you want to purchase or you want to have. إذا كان هناك مبادرة ذهب عيار 18 بآخر عيار 21 وعلم أن نفس الكمية من الذهب يعني نفس الجرامات، هل هذا يعتبر ربا فضل؟ لا، ولكن who would want to do this؟ يعني again, if it's different carat of gold, if you want to exchange it, then it's 10 with 10. But can you do that? You would lose that way. So that's why you have to purchase and then bring another one. Is it permissible if I tell someone to pay or send cash money as sadaqah or gift from my side and I will pay you later? That's fine. So this is basically someone that is giving you a loan, paying on your behalf. So it's like a loan for the sadaqah, and then you pay them back. That's fine without any increase. And it's money with money. It's not deferred. It's the same money. This is in the category of loan. You can take gold as a loan. You can take money as a loan. You're not exchanging money with money. This is different. As long as you don't pay more.
We went over. The one is the gold and silver, which is in one category. In Arabic, what's the term for the monetary?
الثمنية. Yes.
And then what is the term for second advent, which is the
المطعومات أو مطعوم ومع الكيل والوزن. With كيل, which is volume, and وزن is weight. Um, طيب there was اتفضل.
Somebody asked me, does my family, for example, they need $100.
Hmm.
And I tell them, like, they need $100. You know how to do it. Okay, they don't have it. He give it to me here, but dollar. It's not the same time. It's gonna take a while until you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, this issue of money,
Now we are losing hand to hand.
right? The issue of money transfer, and if it's different money, first of all, it has to be done legally. So that's a disclaimer. Nobody does it anything illegal. When it comes to money transfer, if it's going to reach in a different currency, this is where some of the when they discuss this, something that can come into the category of hand to hand. If it's, for example, when you do the wire or so of the money, if it goes from dollar to dollar, there's no problem. But if it goes from dollar and then they take it in different currency, if it goes as dollars and then while he's taking it, then the exchange is happening. Not the price of the day that was wired, but the price of the day that he's taken the money. So, for example, you wired $100 today, and he's going to receive it in 2 days, for example. He say he goes to the bank, and he wants to receive it in dinars. Are they going to give him the dinar on the price of the gold after 2 days, the price of the dollar after 2 days, or the day that was the transfer done? Then that doesn't work. It is not permissible. No, it has to be the time that he's receiving. But again, these specifics, inshallah, we can deal with it differently, inshallah. When we pay employees who are overseas and we send currency in USD, the transaction is instant. However, the deposit to the recipient's account comes later, after a few days. We have no physical way to pay them otherwise due to the distance. Can we advise? The issue of wiring, it's fine. This is something that it gives the same meaning of hand to hand. But if it's wired and it takes days, there's nothing wrong with it. As if you're giving money to someone and he's, please give this money to someone else, and he travels with it. So if it takes few days, that's fine, as long as they would receive it. The issue is when they receive it, whether they receive it in the same money or a different currency, it has to be with the price of the day that they receive. But again, there's ease in the issue of wiring the money, as the fatwa of the ulama are upon this. So if I trade a car for a car, both cars have to be the same value. As we said, cars is not in the 6 points that are mentioned in the hadith. They're not from the same 2 categories. So you can exchange car for a car, and they don't have to be the same value. So you can trade in a car. Your car is worth 5, and you want to purchase a car worth 100. That's fine, and you pay the difference, no problem. Delayed, no problem, as long as there's no riba in the loan part of it. Cars, machines, it's only all of that is permissible. It's only what's forbidden in riba, again, is athamaniya. Things are used for money, gold, silver, cash money. And the other category, the food that is weight or measured with volume. Other than that, it's okay to make exchange. If one car is worth more than the other car, then this is not riba, that's fine. How should it apply to a person when says that the taking interest is haram, not giving interest? Everything with interest is haram. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ أَكِلَهُ وَمُوكِلَهُ وَشَاهِدَيْهِ وَكَاتِبَهُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala curses the one that takes the riba, the one that gives riba, the one that witnessed the contract of riba, the one that writes the contract of riba. They're all in the same category of committing something haram. So it doesn't matter whether you receive or you give. The last question here, I bought the gold with debit card in store and the money was debited from the account the same time. Is it permissible? If it's the same time and debit cards, they give that one of the forms of giving the money instantly, that's fine. But if it's deferred, then it's not permissible. So if it's the same time, that's fine. No. Any questions? Allah musta'an. Allah musta'an. Allah musta'an. Allah musta'an.
So,
True.
so even that the apps which you transfer from here, they say the price, if you want to do it today, they fix one price. And if you want to do it in 6 days, they say the different price. So for suppose $1 is equals to 82 rupees, 82 rupees.
Mhm.
If you want after 6 days, they will give you at a price of 83. So is it permissible to delay in this one, or just we have to do that 2 days?
You should do it the same day, because again we have to know exactly what happens, and if a person receives it after 6 days, he can receive it in after 6 days, but it has to be with the price of it after 6 days, not a price that is before the 6 days.
At the present, what the price is. Has to be
Yes,
the
while
same.
he's taking the money. No. طيب, we'll the hadith real quick inshallah. The hadith of today is hadith number. Sorry, I'm taking too much time. Number 73. Hadith number 73. Hadith number 73. Easy hadith, inshallah, since the subject of riba might be difficult.
Have any reference to this type of
Oh, yes. '73. 73. Repeat, inshallah. What do we say? عن المغيرة ابن شعبة.
عن المغيرة بن شعبة
عن المغيرة ابن شعبة
عن المغيرة بن شعبة
رضي الله عنه
رضي الله عنه
قال:
قال:
كنت مع النبي
كنت مع النبي
صلى الله عليه وسلم
صلى الله عليه وسلم
فتوضأ
فتوضأ
فأهويت
فأهويت
لأنزع خفيه
أنزع خفيه
لأنزع خفيه
أنزع خفيه
فقال:
فقال:
دعهما
دعهما
فإني أدخلتهما طاهرتين.
طاهرتين
دعهما فإني أدخلتهما طاهرتين. فمسح عليهما.
فمسح عليهما.
متفق عليه. Here Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah, and this is a very famous hadith that is known to be the hadith of Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah in wiping over the khuf. He says, Kuntu, I was مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, with the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, and it was said that they were traveling. فتوضأ. So the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام made wudu. فتوضأ. فأهويت. أهويت is a word that refers to going from up to down. Like al-hawa, the desire, makes a person falls. So, and also anything that free fall, for example, it's called also like this. So, فأهويت, that means I went down. لأنزع, فأهويت is talking about himself. فأهويت لأنزع. النزع is when you remove something. لأنزع. Sometimes it's used for removing something strongly with force, and sometimes it's not. قل اللهم مالك الملك تنزع الملك ممن تشاء. Oh Allah, the مالك الملك, the owner of sovereignty, you remove the sovereignty from whoever you will. So لأنزع خفيه, to remove his خفيه in the dual tense, his two khuf. And the khuf is what is on the foot, and whether it refers to what's made of leather or socks. Al-khuf, in general, in the language of the Arabic language, it refers to the leather, yes. But the cloth, which is differences of opinions, there's other words in other hadith that talks about jawrabayn. So لأنزع خفيه. And we talked about wiping over the socks and the conditions of it. So فأهويت لأنزع خفيه. خفيه too. فقال, so the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he said, دعهما. دع means leave. Leave them both. دعهما. If it's دعهم, leave them in the plural tense. دعهما, leave them. That means don't touch them, don't take them out. فإني, because indeed I did. أدخلتهما. أدخلت, that means I inserted them or I entered. الدخول is when you enter somewhere. So أدخلتهما, that means I put them on طاهرتين. That means I put my foot in the socks. طاهرتين, or in the خفين. طاهرتين, pure. While they were pure, that means he had full wudu, عليه الصلاة والسلام, meaning that he washed his foot and then he put afterwards the khuf on when after wudu. So that's why he can wipe over them, which is one of the conditions of wiping over the socks or over the khuf, is that you had to have wear them instead of wudu, instead of tahara. فَمَسَحَ عَلَيْهِمْ. The Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام wiped over the khuf. He did not take them off to wash his foot. So that's what the hadith. So let's say it again, inshallah. عن المغيرة بن شعبة رضي الله عنه قال كنت مع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فتوضأ فأهويت لأنزع خفيه فأهويت لأنزع خفيه فقال دعهما فإني أدخلتهما طاهرتين فإني أدخلتهما طاهرتين فمسح عليهما. متفق عليه. نعم لينزعها. نعم. Same الحديث of الذبابة. If the fly falls into your drink فلينزعها. Let him take it, dip it. فليغمسها ثم was the word ينزعها. يغمسها first, you dip it and then you take it out and you throw it away. No, هويته, that means I went down. He went to explain that, the Prophet ﷺ is sitting and he's standing. So he said فأهويته, that means I went down to take from the adab, from the manners of Al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah. And he thought that the Prophet ﷺ, since he's going to make wudu, so he was, from the manners, he wants to take the socks of the Prophet ﷺ off. So the Prophet ﷺ told him, leave them, I put them on while my foot is in state of tahara or purification. Anything else? بارك الله فيكم. صلى الله وسلم وبارك على محمد وصحبه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.